No, not at all. Hello.
Hello, how are you? It's just so dark in here. We've been,
Darkness.
I tried to.
Darkness.
Yeah. And it does, Brian was wearing the hat, so it's like,
Yeah.
really, people see him.
Yeah. So,
So tell us how you got involved with this project.
well, people are gonna hate me for this. I got lucky. For I don't know, my manager called. I was actually in the middle of shooting one night in Miami, and we were on a break, and my manager called me and said, "Hey, you want to do Green Lantern?" I was like, "Wait, what are you talking about?" He said they got the animated movie going, and they people are asking around about you. They want you to come do it. I was like, "Are you serious?" So I have no idea who was looking at me or who was trying to holler. I don't know, but I'm not going to question. I'm just going to accept. But yeah, that's how it happened. And it's pretty awesome for me because I'd worked in animation a few different times before, and to get an opportunity like this was really truly amazing. I mean, animation's a fun world to live in, but it's very difficult and hard to actually get into. Very difficult job to do as well when it comes to doing it really at a high level. So stepping into it, I know the challenge really was about making sure that I could meet the stakes. I could meet the expectations, because it's not just going there and start talking and speaking and I'm good. Like, no, you have to perform still, So I got lucky, and I just hope I lived up to it.
And Brian was just talking about how difficult it is to act alone,
Yeah.
but without that connection and without that feedback.
Yes.
What was that the most difficult thing
So
about it for you?
that is one of the difficult elements, because, say for live action, you get to respond to whoever or whomever is you're acting alongside. So your responses, it's easier to be more reactive and organic, because you can draw from how somebody looks at you, how they touch you, how they, say something to you. Hey, hold up, you know what I mean? With this, you have to imagine the stakes, and especially when you're sitting there, okay, there's a big battle, you're in a ship, this just blew up, boom, 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 and you're like, all right, cool, so where would he be at in this space? And you get to create it, so the responsibility is on you to really, and granted, Jeff, like, we had a fantastic director. He knocked it out of the park. And when I saw the movie, I was like, oh, that's an even harder job for them to do, because all of our relationships feel seamless, like we were all in the same room. Today is the first day we all met, the cast.
That's what they were saying.
Yeah. So they did casting, and our producers and our director did a hell of a job. But you have to imagine it. You have to create the stakes. You have to create the intentions from a different place. And your imagination really does have to stretch. I implore anyone who does animation not only to watch, but to really be a fan of animation, because when you study and you hear the inflection in people's voices, you see how well they do it, and you try to emulate it, and you realize it ain't so easy. You're like, oh, these people go to work. So yeah, it's difficult not having the other performers to directly act off of or respond to, but it puts you in a hot seat as a creative to stretch your muscles and learn a little bit more about what you're capable of. And that is the thing I love the best, because it really does test you. It tests your merit, and you really got to step up to the plate.
How important was it to bring the PTSD part of his character to life?
Well, for me, both my parents are former Marines. And I was actually born on base Camp Lejeune.
Oh, wow.
And I grew up around servicemen and women. I understand that well. I grew up in a neighborhood with a brother who suffered from PTSD. And as a kid, you don't really understand the thing. It's like, something's off about that brother. But then as you become an adult, you realize what it is. So for me, the fact that we even get to have this conversation, shout out to the writers for that. The fact that we get to have the conversation and we touch on it, especially in the animated space, is amazing. I do hope that I did it justice. But with him, it becomes a personal thing. It's like he has this PTSD, but how does he manage, how does he cope with that? Because there are so many subtle triggers that people who actually experience that go through, and they can't build a defense against it because they never know what is going to trigger them at any particular moment, right? It could be somebody knocking on the door, they don't expect it, and they feel like, oh, I'm back in the battlefield, that was a bomb, that was a bullet. So they find different decisive methods that decisive methods that become healing and cope, like OCD, like, different things, to create a safe space. And for me, the importance of it, however we approached it, is the fact that we did approach it in order to open up a conversation for people to realize that it's actually much more important than maybe some people give attention to. And I do hope that we represented it well so that people can understand that there's a real big need, a serious and a sort of immediate need to galvanize around people who actually go through this, because it's much more common than we think. It's much more common than people understand. We could be giving a lot more government dollars to it, because I mean, look, I don't want to go on rent. Like I said, both of my parents are veterans. One of my biggest issues is the fact that I feel like go to the battlefield, they come home, they're not taken care of, they're not prioritized the way they need to be. I have a real problem with that. And I don't understand why, when they're the ones who allow us to live, they put their lives on the line to allow us to live, the lives that we do in this bubble of safety. So the fact, again, like that we get to tap into that, and because it's animated, you're going to get a younger audience that's going to understand what that is. They're going to do the research because, this is the Google generation, and hopefully we grow up with a different generation of people who are more aware, more empathetic, and a little bit more in service to the need of trying to address PTSD. Sorry, that's a very long answer.
It's okay. No, it's good.
I have a lot to say.
So you've immersed yourself in the DC universe now as Hawkman and now Green Lantern. Can you talk about the importance of diversity in the comic book area and your feelings towards it?
Sure. Oh, I will answer real quick. I will answer real quick as I'm getting up. It is terribly important because representation is huge. For people who always have had representation, they don't understand sometimes the value of it, and they sometimes take it for granted because they've never needed it. For those of us who grow up and we see it, we're clamoring for it, we're hungry for it, almost desperate for it, and when we get to see it, we get to have it in the right ways, in the proper ways. For little black and brown boys and girls to grow up and see, oh, that's a toy that looks like me, that's a comic book character that looks like me. You can connect to superheroes all day, but when you see one that looks like you, it allows you to believe in something beyond the imaginative. It allows you to actually believe in the potential of yourself to say, I can be that one day. Growing up, I see superhero movies, but when I see the black ones, I'm like, boom, I can actually be a part of that, or granted in my situation, I can be a part of things that aren't generally, like me, but we have the opportunity because now there are a lot more people who are taking inclusion more seriously because they understand the necessity for it. And we are, look, I'm paraphrasing Simone and that, artists need to reflect the times in which they live. If we're trying to reflect the truth, we got to reflect the nature of how we look and how we live in this country and in this world all over. There are so many voices that need to be represented. So representation is imperative when it comes to the value and the quality and the sustenance of what we do as artists. We have a responsibility. That's it. All right.